What's happening, y'all? Chris Bonner here, Power Training TV, all things power related. I got a pretty vague question from a kid. He's asking me, how do I train speed for my athletes? So what he's wondering is when an athlete wants to come into strength camp and they want to sign up and say they want to have speed, we go ahead and, he wants to know, what do I do next? First and foremost, I don't want to be condescending in this sense, but it's a very vague question. So say I have a guy coming in, an athlete, and he wants to obtain speed. The very first thing I need to develop is a needs analysis. You see, a needs analysis for a MMA fighter is going to be completely different than a football player. You see, an MMA fighter, I'm not going to try to get him faster in the 40-yard dash or his 10-yard sprint burst or something like that, as much as I'll emphasize it for the football player. So really, speed is just a direct reflection of what the athlete needs to produce in his sport or competition, depending on what it is they do. You see, an MMA fighter, when I've trained with them, I'm more trying to get their movements that they're going to be doing in the ring faster, whether it be a kick or a punch or anything like that. I want to train that kind of speed, right? So I might work on a little more reaction type stuff. I might work on a little more producing through the hips, a little more speed through the core so he could throw that jab. As far as what I'm assuming is, take that out of the picture, what I'm assuming is you're talking about basically athletes who need to develop sprinting speed, linear speed, or whether it be something that transitions onto the field or court, any kind of speed as far as throughout their legs running. First and foremost, the easiest method that we have developed here at Strength Camp, and what me and Elliot have kind of come together to work on, was we take somebody in, we first and foremost assess their muscle viruses. I know you've heard Elliot talk about this a lot, but basically what we want to know is what muscles are tonic and what muscles are phasic, which ones are weak and which ones are strong, which ones are tight, which ones are loose. All right, does that make sense? So what happens is you start to see in certain athletes, especially at a younger level in high school, they develop these complexes from sitting on the desk all day or whatever it is that they do. Maybe they're shy and they don't want to talk to girls or something. I don't know what the hell it is. But you tend to see the same muscle viruses and you tend to see the same posture makeups. So a lot of times you see the kyphotic, you see them coming down like this, the forward head. You see the glutes inhibited. You see the hip flexors are extremely tight. This is a product of sitting down all day at school in our society. So there's so many different things we look at from there. So to sum that up in a shell, what I do is I take a kid and I try to start breaking him down into different movements to see what's tight and what's loose. From there, what I need to do is know basically from coaching, what I need to do 99% of the time is fire their glutes and stretch their hip flexors. Hip flexors are really tight, glutes aren't firing. That's first and foremost. So that's one of the number one things I see. The next one in the upper shoulder region is with the kyphotic posture. I want to stretch the pec minor, open this cavity up, stretch the lats, and strengthen the posterior deltoids, the upper mid traps, all through the back there, the rhomboids, everything, to really open up their body and get them to be able to run a little bit easier instead of this way. Can you see that? I see a lot of kids doing that, or they might not be as clean when they're running. After that, I assess. Basically what I do is after I assess them and see, this might not be everybody. I might get kids that are more, have a little bit different, upper tight hamstrings or something like that. This might change, but I'm just talking about in general, this is what I typically see with high school athletes down here in South Florida. So after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to protocol them with a series of what I call ISO activation exercises. What I want to do is break down a simple movement, and I want them to activate certain levels starting from the feet going up of different muscles that they're going to need for the speed in their competition. So let's just say we're using normal linear speed. I'm going to develop some movements for them to fire their glutes, okay? And then I might develop some movements for them to stretch and then activate their hip flexors. I also might do some things to force couple their core, so their core is firing. Like I mentioned in another video, your body works in a kinetic chain. I also might work some arm pumping exercises just to ingrain the motor patterns in their body. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place an emphasis, depending on where they're at. If they completely don't have any kind of infrastructure or structural integrity, I'm going to focus more on squats, teaching deadlifts, teaching any kind of things where I can basically load the posterior chain and have them building that strength. Now, if they come to me with a base of strength and they're a little bit more advanced, I might start them off with some speed, some mechanic type work. Maybe I'll do some jump type training and power type training only when they've already developed that strong infrastructure of strength, of absolute strength, that they can produce the speed onto the field. And then from there, I'll work maybe a little bit of unilateral, maybe a little posterior chain, maybe a little isometric type of movement in the glutes or hamstrings, and that's it. I just gave you my whole rundown of exactly what I do when I get an athlete and I want to help them get faster. I hope that helps. Check it out, try it out. Chris Barnett, Apparel Training TV.